Hello and welcome to the U.S. Inland Navigation Rule video for Rule 24. Rule 24 covers the lights and shapes that vessels engaged in towing and pushing operations must display. Rule 24A states that a power-driven vessel when towing astern shall exhibit, instead of the light prescribed in either Rule 23A Item 1 or 23A Item 2, two masthead lights in a vertical line. When the length of the tow measuring from the stern of the towing vessel to the after end of the tow exceeds 200 meters, three such lights in a vertical line. Side lights, a stern light, a towing light in a vertical line above the stern light, and when the tow exceeds 200 meters, a diamond shape where it can best be seen. Okay, let's review this item by item in this diagram so you can get a visual of what the rule is stating. The first thing the rule states is that the vessel must display two masthead lights. Then if the length of the tow exceeds 200 meters, the rule requires a third masthead light with all three of the lights being in a vertical line. The vessel also must display side lights, a stern light, and a yellow towing light above the stern light. And the last item in the rule refers to the day shape that must be shown when the length of the tow exceeds 200 meters. They need to display a diamond day shape where it could best be seen. Now I'm going to go ahead and pause so you can take a picture of a screenshot to help you in your studies. Rule 24B states that when a pushing vessel and a vessel being pushed ahead are rigidly connected in a composite unit, they shall be regarded as one power-driven vessel and exhibit the lights prescribed in Rule 23. Now, before we cover the prescribed lights, let's make sure that you understand what the rule means by a composite unit. This means that the tugboat is rigidly connected to the vessel it is pushing, making them one solid unit. Then, since they're operating as one solid unit, they would need to display a masthead light, a stern light, and side lights. I'm going to go ahead and pause so you can take a picture or screenshot this to help you in your studying. Rule 24C states that a power-driven vessel, when pushing ahead or towing alongside, except as required by paragraphs B and I of this rule, shall exhibit, instead of the lights prescribed either in Rule 23A Item 1 or 23A Item 2, two masthead lights in a vertical line, side lights, and two towing lights in a vertical line. So before we dive into the light requirements, it's important to note that this rule is for vessels that are pushing ahead but are not connected in a composite unit, or when they are towing alongside. The rule states that the towing vessel needs to display two masthead lights in a vertical line, side lights, and two towing lights in a vertical line. Again, I'm going to go ahead and pause so you could go ahead and take a picture or screenshot this image so you could use it for your studies. Rule 24D states that a vessel or object other than those referred to in paragraph G of this rule being towed shall exhibit side lights, a stern light, and when the length of the tow exceeds 200 meters, a diamond shape where it can best be seen. Now, this rule is specifically dedicated to the vessel that's being towed. So let's go through it in the diagram to illustrate what the rule is stating. The vessel or object being towed needs to display side lights, a stern light, and then when the tow exceeds 200 meters, a diamond shape where it can best be seen. Again, I'm going to go ahead and pause for a second to give you a chance to screenshot or take a picture of this image. Rule 24E states that provided that any number of vessels being towed alongside or pushed in a group shall be lighted as one vessel except as provided in paragraph 3. First item, a vessel being pushed ahead, not being part of a composite unit, shall exhibit at the forward end side lights and a special flashing light. A vessel being towed alongside shall exhibit a stern light and at the forward end side lights and a special flashing light. And when vessels are towed alongside on both sides of the towing vessel, a stern light shall be exhibited on the stern of the outbound vessel on each side of the towing vessel. and a single set of side lights as far forward and as far outboard as practicable, and a single special flashing light. Now again, let's go ahead and go through the first part of this rule in the diagram so you get a visual of what the rule is stating. A vessel that's being pushed ahead but is not part of a composite unit must display their side lights and a special flashing light. Now I'm going to go ahead and pause and give you a second to go ahead and take a picture or screenshot this image before we dive into the second part of this rule. The second item in Rule 24E states that a vessel being towed alongside shall exhibit a stern light and at the forward end side lights and a special flashing light. Now let's go ahead and continue to break this rule down in the diagram to give you a visual of what the rule is stating. So this rule applies to vessels that are being towed alongside another vessel. So the vessel being towed shall exhibit a stern light and at the forward end side lights and a special flashing light. Now let's go ahead and pause for a second so you can screenshot this image, and then we'll go on to the third part of this rule. Item 3 in the rule states that when vessels are towed alongside on both sides of the towing vessel, a stern light shall be exhibited on the stern of the outboard vessel on each side of the towing vessel, and a single set of side lights as far forward and as far outboard as practicable, and a single special flashing light. Now this is a really long one, so let's go ahead and break it down sentence by sentence to make sure you understand every aspect of this rule. In this situation, there would be a vessel on the port side of the towing vessel and another vessel on the starboard side of the towing vessel. Now the first thing that the rule states is that a stern light shall be exhibited on the stern of the vessel on each side of the towing vessel. Then they must show a single set of side lights as far forward and outward as practicable. And then lastly, a single special flashing light. I'm going to go ahead and pause again to give you a second to go ahead and screenshot or take a picture of this image. Rule 24F states that an inconspicuous, partly submerged vessel or object being towed shall exhibit the following. Now, the rest of the items in Rule 24F actually continue into Rule 24G, so let's go ahead and start breaking those down. Let's start with the first statement in Rule 24G, which states that if a vessel is less than 25 meters in breadth, an all-round white light at or near each end. So to start, let's go ahead and reinforce that this is for partially submerged vessels or objects that are being towed. Then if the vessel or object is less than 25 meters in breadth, an all-round white light near each end. Now these lights are used to help identify the beginning or the start and end of the tow so that other vessels can navigate safely around the tow. And again, I'll go ahead and give you a second to go ahead and screenshot this image. Rule 24G item 1 states that if the vessel or object being towed is 25 meters or more in breadth, 4 all-round lights to mark its length and its breadth. Now, this part of the rule states that if the partially submerged vessel or object being towed is greater than or equal to 25 meters in breadth, then the vessel or object must display 4 all-round lights to mark the length and the breadth of the item being towed. Again, I'm going to go ahead and give you a second to go ahead and screenshot or take a picture of this image before we proceed. Rule 24G item 2 states that if the partially submerged item or vessel being towed exceeds 100 meters in length, and additional all-round white lights between the lights prescribed in subparagraph 1 and 2, so that the distance between the lights shall not exceed 100 meters, provided that any vessels or objects being towed alongside each other shall only be lighted as one vessel or object. Now, this rule states that if the partially submerged object is greater than 100 meters in length, the vessel or object would need the all-round white lights at each end. Then additional all-round lights need to be placed in between all of the other lights at the end to ensure that the distance between each light does not exceed 100 meters. I'm going to go ahead and pause so you could go ahead and screenshot this image. And then the last part of this rule states that if multiple vessels or objects are being towed alongside each other, then they shall be lighted as only one vessel or object, like shown in this image. And again, I'm going to go ahead and give you a second to screenshot or take a picture of this image. Rule 24G item 3 states that a diamond shape at or near the aftermost extremity of the last vessel or object being towed, and the towing vessel may direct a searchlight in the direction of the tow to indicate its presence to an approaching vessel. So this part of the rule is just stating that a diamond day shape must be placed at the aftermost extremity of the last vessel being towed if the vessels are in a group. And then the towing vessel can direct their searchlight in the direction of the tow to illuminate the object of the vessel and the tow line. Now let's go ahead and pause again for a minute so you can go ahead and take a screenshot or a picture before we proceed. Rule 24H states that where from any sufficient cause it is impracticable for a vessel or object being towed to exhibit the lights prescribed in paragraph E or G of this rule, all possible measures shall be taken to light the vessel or object being towed, or to at least indicate the presence of the unlighted vessel or object. So what this rule is stating is that if for any reason you can't use the prescribed lights when engaged in a tow, at a minimum, you need to illuminate the vessel being towed and the tow line. And this is really for safety to other navigating vessels, and really can also apply to vessels that are not designed for towing operations. And there's a separate rule for that, but if you ever find someone in the ocean that needs help and needs to be towed, you should always tow that vessel and use the practice applied in this rule of illuminating the vessel in restricted visibility to really ensure that other vessels can clearly identify that there's a vessel being towed. And again, I'm going to go ahead and pause and give you a second to take a picture or screenshot this before we move on. Rule 24I states that notwithstanding paragraph C, on the western rivers except below the Huey P. Long Bridge on the Mississippi River, and on water specified by the Secretary, a power-driven vessel when pushing ahead or towing alongside, except as paragraph B, shall exhibit side lights and 2 towing lights in a vertical line. So this rule is simply stating that on the western rivers and on the water specified by the Secretary, which would be the inland waters shoreward of the demarcation lines, a power-driven vessel when pushing ahead or towing alongside shall exhibit side lights and 2 towing lights in a vertical line. Now, it is really important to note that this only applies to U.S. inland waters. So make a note of that, and I'm going to go ahead and pause for a second to let you go ahead and take a picture or screenshot this image. Rule 24J states that where from any sufficient cause it is impracticable for a vessel not normally engaged in towing operations to display the lights prescribed in paragraph A, C, or I of this rule, such vessels shall not be required to exhibit those lights when engaged in towing another vessel in distress or otherwise in need of assistance. All possible measures shall be taken to indicate the nature of the relationship between the towing vessel and the vessel being assisted. The searchlight authorized by Rule 36 may also be used to illuminate the tow. Now, what this is simply stating is what we previously covered. If you run into anyone that needs a tow, you should always tow them back to shore. And since your vessel is not set up with the lights, you're not a regular towing vessel engaged in towing operations, you should illuminate the tow and the tow line for safety with a searchlight. All right, congratulations on completing the U.S. Inland Navigation Rule 24 video. And I know there was a lot of information, but it is extremely important that you understand this for your final exam and when you're navigating in restricted visibility. All of these are covered extensively in the final exam, so make sure you go back, study the screenshots of each diagram so you fully understand them, and when you're ready, I'll be waiting for you in the next lesson.